Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is 14:16, so about 2:15 in the afternoon after lunch. Today we're not going to have this personal little introduction discussion because we're going to get straight into the discussion. Why? Well, because we have so many things to talk about today, or not many things, but quite a huge point when it comes to the founder's problem is the elevator pitch, which is what we will be covering today. We will be talking about what it is, examples of it, and its purpose and where it comes from. So without any further ado, let's get into it. And where it comes from, where does the name, the elevator pitch, comes from? Because it's quite the abstract name, it's quite the weird formulation, isn't it? Why an elevator pitch? Well, that is because the idea is that you're supposed to deliver a pitch then of your entire business model, everything that you're going to do, your competitions, your competitors, and so on and so forth. And I have 7 anchor points that we're going to discuss later on and mention that's going to be in your pitch. So these 7 anchor points you need to be able to deliver whilst going up an elevator. That is the idea. So you just imagine you're going in as a founder, as an entrepreneur, and you see someone that you want to, well, have as an investor, and they are on their way into an elevator. You run after them, or go straight for them, and you walk quite fast, quite speedily and steadily, and you make it into the elevator with them. Here is where the name stems from, because from that you leave the first floor, the ground floor, to that they get to where they're supposed to be. You have them in a confined space, a confined area, which is the elevator. And in this elevator, you need to pitch your entire business idea in about average, 1 to 2 minutes, so that they can, get an understanding of what it is. This needs to be catchy, it needs to be, creating an interest, it needs to deliver the key information, and it needs to be concise, and it needs to be, structured so that the person listening can actually follow. And we're going to talk about not rushing it whilst you're rushing it as well, because that is an equally as important part and an equally as important point. But that is what the elevator pitch is, why it's named is elevator pitch, because the idea is that in this confined space of the elevator, you're supposed to pitch your idea, your business idea, to this investor before they reach the floor where they're going to leave. So inside of the elevator, you're going to pitch your idea. Now I'm going to work with 2 documents here, which I'm not used to. So if it looks like I have a bit of a time lag between what I'm thinking about talking about and what I'm actually talking about, it's because I'm shifting between 2 different documents. But as I said, today we're going to talk about the elevator pitch, what it is, its purpose, an example, etc. I'm going to deliver my pitch about the channel because I thought, what better example do I have than talk about the channel and make a pitch for the channel, because a pitch needs to be made. And I was thinking about, as I said, cover this yesterday, but I kind of pushed it forward a bit because I was working on the pitch. Yet again, it's just a rough draft after all. So the 7 key anchor points that I'm talking about before we make it into the pitch and actually identify them is: define the problem, describe your solution, know your target market, describe the competition, who's on your team, financial summary, and show traction with milestones. So quite a general approach to the elevator pitch. Now there are many different approaches to go about the elevator pitch, but this is the one that I chose because 7 points is easy to manage. All of them is approximately maybe between 10 and 20 seconds, and that will make up about 1 to 2 minutes of pitch. So let's get straight into the example then. And I'm having a time stop here, or a time, what's it called? It's stopper in Swedish. So a way of measuring the time on my on my phone. So we're going to start this as we start the pitch, and we're going to see how much time it takes. So without any further ado, let's start. So we're starting it there. Starting with defining the problem. We're living in a world where groups decide the outcome of the individual, where if you don't support black, you believe in white, with no gray area in between, and a place where uniquely expressed opinions are frowned upon and actively discouraged. Describe your solution. In order to combat this problem, I have chosen to launch my own YouTube channel called Sim.bc. The focus is aimed mainly at educating the viewers as well as introducing new train of thought in common areas of reasoning. That is quite a broad statement, but it is presented on the platform by tackling topics of controversy that are eminent in society instead of shying away from them. Know your target market. The general viewer is any person of any age who seeks to be informed regarding the topics that I discuss. However, the intended viewer is anyone between the age of 20 to 30, regardless of gender, who's either got a university diploma within a related discipline or is currently working within a field of interest in relation to the discussion hosted on the channel. Describe your competition. Other scientific-based channels or fact-supported channels on YouTube are my direct competitors. However, indirect competitions are other mediums covering the same topics as I do, such as newsletters, and so on and so forth. Who's on your team? Well, me, I'm an international management graduate from Sweden who's going to graduate this summer and therefore have a educated or an academic opinion in the field of economics and business. Financial summary. Low expenses. I have a WordPress site. That's probably my only solid expense that is running for the time being. Future expenses might be a camera and, obviously the time investment. Show traction with milestones. Currently, I have 6 months worth of video coverage on my channel, woohoo, and a Twitter in order to market externally that was created 3 to 4 weeks ago and has already gained over 50 to 60 followers. And that is sim.bc from me to you. And just bear in mind that I was covering the different topics here of the different places or the different parts, and even doing so, it ended up being 205.75 minutes, which is really good, because that is in between that time of 1 to 2 minutes. You probably will be able to pitch this if you know this pitch by heart. Obviously, I read mine just from the computer screen from the document, but if you know this by heart, you will be able to pitch this in an elevator with no effort, with no problems whatsoever, and actually being able to manage to pitch your idea, convey your thoughts and convey your idea over the course of the elevator ride, which is 2 thumbs fresh in my book. So there are some important things to mention and to think about when define the problem. Make sure that you're actually defining the actual problem. For me, what is my motivation? Because this is going to be the motivation behind why you're doing your business. It's one of the key problems going to show the investor who you are and how you go about this problem by virtue of how you're actually describing the solution and motivating your solution, which leads in then to describe your solution. Because when you're defining the problem, you're probably defining the problem from a certain perspective. That's going to show who you are. By showing off your solution, you're not only showing off, there might be a technical solution that you're working with, a specific technique, but when you're talking about it, it's probably going to be influenced of how you're thinking and your innovative nature and how much you believe in it. So those 2 things I would argue is some of the most important parts, or at least many people say they are. However, it's equally as important to knowing your target market and to be able to describe the competition, because if you don't know who you're going to sell to, then it doesn't matter how good it is, because you're not going to know who you're going to market it to. And then you're going to know your competition because you need to show off that you know which industry you're actually in. Who's on your team? Arguably not as important. Sure, it is important to show off that you have some relevant experience in the team or at your disposal and at your service. Sure, that is important because people want to see that it's not only you, but depending on who you are, right? But that it's actually a team behind it that can take decisions, that can actually work on the project, so that it looks a bit more reasonable to actually invest in the company. Financial summary, always a plus. Especially when it comes taking a loan from, formal institutions, but even when convincing investors, showing off that you've been thinking about your expenses and your incomes and so on and so forth, can give you a great deal. That can make you get along a very long while. Show traction with milestones. That's just to actually show the investor that you know what you've actually been doing so far and that you've actually started investing time in this, so that you show the person who's going to invest that you're also investing in it, either if that's by financial means or just by time investment. That's up to you based on how your situation looks like. But yet again, showing traction with milestones is also a good thing. What you might be looking at here is that all of these things are good. All 1, 2, 7 are important, but I would yet again argue define your problem and solution, and target market and competition are the 4 most important ones. And if you're going to choose 2, it's probably describe your solution and knowing your target market. And if you're only going to describe 1 based on the investor, right, it's probably describe your target market, because people are gonna know, who are you targeting? Is it someone that I'm targeting at the moment? Is it someone I'm not targeting at the moment? Are we going to be future competitors? Are we not going to be future competitors? Am I going to be able to work with you based on the target market that you have? It's quite important, something that unfortunately many people jump over. So put some extra thought into that when you're going through it. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of not rushing it, because many people run into the problem that they have a superb elevator pitch right there. They're able to convey all of these things, all of these 7 steps, but it unfortunately takes them 5 minutes to do so. Now, what many people tend to do is they're saying, well, it's awesome, it's good. Now I'm going to read it 4 times as fast and we're going to be down at 1.5 minutes. Something along those lines. And that's not good. For one, it's not good because, well, people might not be able to understand you. Just because you can be talking, 120, 150 words per minute, and a person can understand up to 500 to 1,000 words a minute, doesn't mean they're actually going to actively be listening for you, just spitting out, knowledge, spitting out ideas at them for 1.5 minutes, if it's naturally going to be covered over 5 minutes. This problem is that people are just going to be relying on that, well, this is really good, so I'm going to say it faster, but what you don't consider is that the person listening to you might be a victim to information overflow, and hence they will just block out everything you say, and they will just, shove you out. What is more important in such a situation, when you've written the superb and the perfect pitch and it takes 5 minutes, is to revise your language using more precise language. Maybe you don't need to take a pause at all times. Maybe you need to make it a bit more fluent. Maybe you can rework some points. Maybe you can combine some points. Maybe when it comes to the solution, you don't need to go into what the solution actually is on the technical detail and the operational level of your financial summary, but more about the general pointers in what direction am I actually going to go to, I'm gonna go in, what does it look like, what are you, maybe not going through your entire team if you have a team of 20 people, but saying, well, there's me, and then there's the 2 people that it's in the current TMT, right, the current top management team, and the other people you don't have to mention. Maybe you can mention that, the general background, that they're from the same school, or that they're from the same, industry, but not more than that. You don't have to go into every person all the time. So yet again, revising what is the most important things, and can I use a more direct, operational language, a more direct, a more precise language is the key word there. So the elevator pitch, just to round it off, what it is a pitch of your entire business ideas so far that's going to be able to be delivered from 1 to 2 minutes when going up an elevator in a confined space, when you have an investor, forced to listen to you. Its purpose is to convince this potential investor, to invest in your business, and to convey all of the points that make up your business idea so far. And an example, you had that in the beginning, the example of this channel's rough sketch of an elevator pitch, trying to cover all of these important things. And those are 7 key points of how to do it. The 7 anchor points that you need to keep in mind when actually writing your elevator pitch, having a structure to it so that it's natural to follow. Just imagine that the problem is followed by solution, the target market is followed by competition, who's on your team is followed by the financial summary, and then in the end is kind of a standalone short traction with milestones, which is supposed to be all of the previous 6 steps combined. What has happened when we're combining them, that is probably a milestone within itself, and that's probably spawning future milestones. So yet again, going through it, define the problem, describe your solution, know your target market, describe the competition, who's on your team, financial summary, and show traction with milestones. And for the love of me, don't rush it. Use more precise language instead, because as we've been talking about when it came to stating the right sorts of questions, that entire project, people tend to drift in and out, and the same goes for investors. Just because they're at a multinational corporation, or they're really famous, or they're really wealthy, or they have a particular interest in your area of expertise, they're not forced to listen to you. So even if you're standing in this confined space and they're standing there, that might not mean that you're actively listening. So precise language, try to connect with them on a human level, maybe before you start just throwing out your pitch, because they will be saying after 30 seconds, like, oh, you've been talking to me, I thought you were talking on the phone. Try to establish this connection with them before you actually start. Well, that was everything for me today, mates. Tomorrow we're going to follow up this with the boring stuff. Have a business plan, financial forecast, etc., etc. All of those things that nobody actually wants to take up, but are equally as important as the elevator pitch when it comes down to it. When it actually comes down to when you've introduced an investor and when you actually gained some traction with investors. But that's for tomorrow.